Hands up everybody who's having a good time so far. Oh, well, at least 6 people are having a good time. Great. So we've already been treated to some fabulous stuff with Susie and the last panel. If you're wondering who this guy is standing up here now with the strange accent, my name's Dave Holland, and I go by the title of executive producer or executive director of today's event. In fact, I'm the guy who's been shipping his pants for about the last 6 months. And thank you to everybody who decided to come and join in. I'm very grateful to you all for making this a fabulous event. Without you, we wouldn't have an event, so it's brilliant. I also work as commercial director with Mark at REELSEO, and if you're interested in any of the other services that we do on our blog and consulting and other workshops, then please either contact myself or Mark. We'll be able to tell you what else we do. So I'll jump straight in now to session 2. Everybody seems to be in the room. We're going to be treated, in fact, privileged to have 3, in my opinion, 3 of the top thought leaders in our industry sitting on the stage right now. We've got Jason Thibault on my far left there. Those of you who don't know Jason, Jason is the Director of Marketing Strategy at Limelight Networks, and he's written some fabulous stuff which we've been publishing recently on video marketing. I've got Chris Vasquez. Chris is from PopTent, and if you're not familiar with PopTent stuff, then I highly recommend you go and visit them on their stand and get yourselves a very nice white umbrella. And finally, but not least by any means, Jen Gregono, who is CEO of U Studio. Jen is a well-known speaker and has a great following for lots of the thoughts that she's going to be sharing with us today. So we're going to look at 3 real case studies. These will be studies around real brands, and the aim of each of these case studies is to have a look at what measurable, real statistical data we can get from the use of a successful video marketing campaign, whether it's just the campaign on its own or whether the campaign was used in a bigger marketing mix. So we are going to kick off with Jason, who's going to come up and talk about one of the brands that they've been working with. So thanks, Jason. Can we have Jason? We don't need the intro. We're going to go straight in.
Thanks for the intro, Dave. And by the way, I want my company name pronounced Limelight next time. I can't name it to PopTent, which is really cool. Yep. Oh, you love that. This should work. Okay, so if all of this stalls completely, I'm blaming him. No, so I'm not going to introduce Limelight. Listen, we've got a table out there. You can come find everything out about us. I'm really here to talk to you guys about video marketing. And obviously, we deal a ton with video. So we have lots of customers using our video solutions. And this is one of those customers. And this is not my normal stuff. I don't normally go through case studies. So I'm going to try to make this as exciting as possible when it's really about numbers. To start off, who's this case study about? I'm going to walk out here because I don't want to be standing behind that thing. EyeMotion is one of our customers that services the optometry industry. I know, I saw like 6 people of you just yawn. That's right, optometry, right? Not really exciting. Woo! Optometry. What they do is they create websites and digital presences for optometrists who are great, smart, crazy smart people and ridiculously stupid business people. So they know they need digital, they know they need to be out there, and they're trying to figure out how to do it. And this company creates websites for them, creates all sorts of tools for them to use to engage digitally with their customers. This is what they do. This is an example of one of their clients. This is iCentral out of Washington, D.C. So again, just a standard optometrist trying to figure out how do I use digital to book relationships, to book appointments, to service my customers. Well, one of the things they were asking about as EyeMotion started launching this service was, hey, that's great, but we need ways to drive up traffic. We need to drive people to our site. We can't engage with people if they're not on our website. And we need a way to engage with them more, like to keep them on the site and to keep them excited. And so what EyeMotion did was EyeMotion launched an educational video center. So this is sort of a first of its kind in the optometry industry. I say that laughingly, right? In the optometry industry, first time. It was this concept of really cool educational videos. Now, a little anecdote, when I went to do this case study with this company, and I started talking to them about this, and they told me about it, I actually went to the website and I watched all the videos. I got sucked in to watching educational videos about eye diagnoses. You find that funny? I guarantee if you go to this site and watch their videos, you too will watch the entire library. So they came up with this great opportunity to launch this educational video center. And what they did was they thought about it in two ways. They said, okay, we got video on the site, right? So we can put the educational center on there sort of in pages, but then we also can feature it on the home page. So they were thinking about how do we up, right, the visibility of these optometrists in search results. Well, you got to do that with video. Video is going to drive them up in the search results. So they decided, let's put a nice little, over on the right-hand side, a little embedded video player right on the home page. And at the same time, we've got to have it integrated with the content, right? It's got to be part of the experience, the digital experience that our patients and prospective patients are having with our website. Okay, this is where it gets really exciting, boring. No, really exciting. This is all the really cool data stuff right now. Watch this, right? So what did they discover? What did EyeMotion find out about changing their business model to include video? And what did their doctors find out about the way people were engaging with this video? So number one, yeah, duh, video works, right? It works to keep people on pages longer. It works to get them attracted and excited. So the average time that they're finding people are spending on their videos is about 1 minute and 5 seconds. Now, some people are saying, right now, minute, 5 seconds, who cares, that's nothing. Okay, that's the entire length of each educational video. So they're watching a video from start to end. And chances are, what they're finding is that they're actually watching more than one video. So what's really cool is that people are engaging with the videos. What they're also finding is about 20% of all site activity is clicking on video. So 1 out of every 5 users is engaging with this video content. So boom, right? EyeMotion is like success. We're giving our doctors something that their patients are going to engage with. Second thing, 66% of the video views are from unique users. Not only is the video great at engaging and people are watching the whole things, but holy smokes, the new people that are coming to the website are all clicking on the video. I say all. 66% is not all, but it's a lot. Right? A lot of these people coming to the website for the first time are engaging with this really cool content. So doctors are excited. Engagement is global. So this was kind of a shocker, right? They figured that if they put the video right on the homepage, that people would hit it right away. Right? They'd get to the website and they'd go, oh, video, and they'd push the click button, play, and they'd start watching. Well, that's not exactly what they found out, right? What they found out was that only 27% of the video views are actually from the homepage. So what they realized was that video and engagement with video has to be global. It has to be part of the entire digital experience. It's got to be woven throughout the website. Number 3, and this is kind of a cool thing, a little departure here from traditional measurement is that there are intangible benefits to video, and that's what these doctors found out. So what they started doing was that they started showing their video to patients in the actual doctor's office. So they would take the tablet or they would take the laptop, they'd walk in, they'd be talking to the patient, hey, do you know you have some diagnosis I can't even pronounce? Watch this video. I'm going to show you this video. And here they were, showing and using the video as a face-to-face engagement tool. And it's been phenomenal, right? They've recognized that about 50% of their doctors, through surveying and talking to doctors, are using the video in this fashion. I've got a little funny story at the end of that. So ultimately, the results, right? What are the results? What did we learn from this? Is that 75% of EyeMotion customers select the package with video. So what it demonstrated was that video not only has the ability for their customers to better engage, get better results, more interactivity, longer time on page, but EyeMotion itself has found a marked revenue increase by integrating video into their business model. So it's a huge win-win across the spectrum for both them and their customers, right? Doctors get this engaging, awesome content, right? Customers get really interactive, cool videos about topics that are important to them, which is, what have I just been diagnosed with? And then lastly, EyeMotion gets new revenue and more business by adding this cool feature into their product. So my anecdote, a little story about a doctor in Mexico. So as I was talking to EyeMotion about this, and they were telling me about doctors who were using this content in their actual clinics and face-to-face engagement, he said, it's really interesting. We talked to this optometrist down in Mexico. And he's obviously in Mexico, so it's Spanish-speaking population. And here he's having discussions with his patients, and he's using the video. And of course, EyeMotion says, our videos aren't in Spanish. How are you using the videos like that? He's like, well, I understand English, so I'm bringing the videos in, and I'm playing it, and I'm turning up the volume, and then I'm translating for my patient. And so, of course, that's demanding. All of a sudden, EyeMotion is thinking like, wow, we're going to be international superstars of the optometry industry. We've got to get all of these videos translated into a bazillion languages. But no, it's very interesting in that it's bridging. People are finding ways to use this content as part of their marketing and engagement efforts without it actually being available to them. That's me. All right. Thank you. I'm assuming we're going to do questions at the end across the board? Perfect. Fantastic. So what I'll do now is I'll hand this back to Mr. Dave Holland, who will introduce our next speaker.
Mark, can we... So our next speaker is Jen Gregono from UStudio, and we're just quickly going to bring up her presentation now.
I can use this. Which one? Excellent. Thank you. Let's see. Yep, this mic is on, not that one. So I can walk around. I may. We'll see. You're good at walking the stage. I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens after you've decided to make an investment in video. So less about whether you should or shouldn't, but more importantly, if you've chosen to make an investment in video, and I suspect many of you have because you're here, and certainly if you listened to the last conversation, you will if you haven't yet. But I think all of us in this room deal with, certainly I know the vendors do, this diversity of video use. And part of the opportunity, once you've made a choice to make that investment, is to sit down with your team and think about what are the considerations, how do we sort of wrangle this thing? And perhaps in my case study, the most important thing you should take away is that you need to have a method to the madness. And we've identified 5 Ps. So all of us in here understand the 4 Ps of marketing, and now some people say the 5th is people, so there are 5. We think there are 5 Ps of video. And regardless of the diversity, the different types of video that you're investing in, these 5 Ps work across any video investment. So very simply, they are production, packaging, publishing, promotion, and profit, which frankly should be the 5th P of marketing. Somebody needs to work that in. I'm going to take each one of these, and I'm going to tell a little story about a company that is considering each of these facets as they invest in video to get a return on the investment. So what's important, again, is not so much what they did, because you may or may not have a video strategy similar to theirs, but that they looked holistically at video as a medium and put a strategy in place that encompassed these 5 Ps. So the first one is production. And I think if you listen to the last session before this, you know that there are lots of different ways to think about production. How much should I spend? What should the length be? I get that question all the time, which I think the story dictates the timing and the length and not the other way around. Do I need star talent? Should I use authentic talent? Should I use my employees? Should I use my customers? And the reality is it depends on what you're trying to do, right? So what is the purpose of your video? And I won't get into too much detail here, again, because I think the last session covered this pretty well. The company that I'm going to talk about is Hyla Cooking. So it's a little business. They have cookbooks and all sorts of side products that you can purchase. And they decided to invest in video a couple of years ago. So for them, the purpose of their video was to educate and inform, right? So not so much entertainment, The goal was to sell product, right? We want to sell more product. The length, they chose to tell stories in under 10 minutes. They thought that was, 9 minutes, 8 minutes was about the amount that was important for them to achieve their goal. The talent, authentic, so you're not going to see them bring Hollywood talent into these productions. They don't need to. And the cost, this is important, under $500 per video. So they basically said, we're going to do this, and we're going to be lean and efficient, and we're going to run a workflow that produces 2 videos a week. They've got it down now to about 4 to 5 hours to shoot, edit, and get to final. So that's pretty impressive. Lots more data there, but I won't get into too much. I want to move on to packaging here. Packaging is about not just metadata and tagging, but also what are the interactive elements and brand elements that you want to pull into your video. So you've shot this thing, but how is it going to be presented? There are visible things, there are invisible things. So we talk about metadata as a very important part of discovery, and that's your title and the description, and knowing how to write those things well so that people can find your video is critical. But also there are things like calls to action. Do I want to have a brand logo or an overlay? There are also really invisible things like codecs. What format do I need to shoot this thing in, and how do I make sure that it's going to translate, and how many bits per second do we need, and H.264 versus VP8. There's a world there that you need to consider. In most cases, you don't have to get into too much depth there, but you certainly need to be aware of the fact that packaging and formatting has, again, visible and invisible components. In this case, the metadata that they essentially wrapped around their videos was very much optimized for search. So trying to drive people back to high-look cooking. I believe they use a YouTube player embed on their site. But again, the goal is to bring it back. You'll see that they marry their content with ads and calls to action. One of the things that they do is, there's the obvious social sharing and so forth, but they ask people to put their email address in so they can increase their email database. Moving on to publishing, this is a big one. There's private audiences and public audiences, right? So forget high-look cooking for a second. Who are you trying to reach? Not everybody needs their video to go to the broadest audience. Not everybody is about building size, right? Sometimes it's just, I need these videos to get to my employees. I need these videos to get to my partners. I need these videos to be shared privately and locked down and very secure. Know where your audience lives, where they spend their time, how you need to reach them, and devise a strategy that gets your video to them at the right time and in the right format. In their case, they've got their videos now on the high-look cooking website, obviously, YouTube, Blip TV. They use podcasting a lot, and they use over-the-top television a lot. And one of the things that they will tell you is they discovered a really interesting audience on Roku. Older audience, oddly enough. They said that the average is people in their 50s. And it's a different audience than Apple TV, and it's sort of Midwest. So the reality is they know what their demographic and psychographic audience makeup is, but the truth is, for most of us in marketing, this might seem sort of opposite of what we learn. There's dynamic segmentation that happens when you put your content out, right? Think of it as fishing and fishing lures. You're going to go throw it into a pond where the fish you're trying to catch live. But you might also discover over time that, hey, I didn't realize that folks that spend a lot of time on Roku actually would enjoy our content. You learn. You learn and evolve based on where you're putting your content. This is my favorite graphic, the poor little lonely video in the forest, and does anybody even know it exists? So if you're going to go through all the trouble to make this great content, to package it properly with the right call to action, brand overlays, and the right elements that make sure it plays beautifully on every device, every screen, and you're going to make sure you put it in all the places where your, did I just mess it up? Put it in all the places where your audience lives, you absolutely need to make sure you tell them about it. And if you don't tell them about it, is that on? If you don't tell them about it, they won't see it. They won't know it. You might get lucky, and again, people will discover it. But this is critical. Metadata, and it's probably the one that I think most of the folks in here spend a lot of time thinking about. Metadata is, again, important. We've talked about that for discovery and search networks. But then you've got all of your social networks. For these guys, Pinterest has overtaken Facebook in terms of their #1 social network. which I thought was interesting. First customer that I've talked to that we've learned that they just started PR, so they don't have a great return on that yet, but that's going to be part of their strategy. They do a lot of email marketing. Said, I know it's boring, but it really works for us. So they send a lot of emails out, they send a lot of newsletters out, and they get great engagement from their audience. They're also able to get a lot of the sharing on these social networks to discover new audience. And then the last bit is profit, right? So you do, again, you're devising your strategy to have great content and put it in the right places and package it properly and promote it. But you have to have a sense for what the return on that investment is. You've got to understand what you're going for. And often that return, we used to think of it in terms of money always. It's not. It's data today. It's time spent with your brand. And it's money. So the currency now is coming in 3 flavors, and that's something you need to consider. Sometimes you just want audience growth and people spending money with your brand because you can monetize that in other ways. Sometimes you're trying to grow your email marketing database, which has money. Sometimes you're trying to save money. If you put a video in front of a customer support rep, the call center can now reduce calls by some factor. And guess what? That's worth a lot of money. So you know what that is for your strategy. In this case, these guys are spending a total cost of video ownership, we call it the TCVO, about 75 to 95K. They produce about 100 videos a year. That's all in production, hosting, and distribution costs. And then the 10x growth over last year was in product sales, so revenue. So you're seeing the same thing, I think, that Jason talked about on the revenue side. And then they've also grown their email database substantially, and then time spent with their brand is something that they measure as well. So again, you don't necessarily have to measure the same things that these guys are measuring, but you got to measure something, right? We can't manage what we're not measuring. So the last advice for everyone in this room that I'll leave you with is, what are your 5 Ps? Know your 5 Ps. They don't have to be the same 5 Ps as your colleague or the department next door or some case study that you heard. Think about it and devise a strategy so that every dollar invested in video gives you a sense for a return. And I think pretty much everybody in here knows that if you can encapsulate that for yourselves, your boss and your boss's boss will ultimately have the ammunition they need to continue to invest in video. So thank you.
So this is going to be a little bit interactive to start off. Let's see if this will come up. Okay, so this is a simple poll. It's really not very scientific, but if you have a phone and want to participate, what you do is you text your answer to this question, the question being, did you do something nice for your mom or the mother of your kids or any other moms in your life for Mother's Day? If you did, text 278-110 to the number 22333. And if you didn't, I would advise you not to text this, because that's kind of a sad admission, but text the other number to the no slot. And hopefully some people do this, or else I'm going to feel pretty foolish.
This is live.
This is live, yeah. So you're going to see results come in as you're texting your answers here. We have 2 great case studies already. And a piece of advice for any of you guys who will ever give a case study, never go last. Geez, that's going to be a little tough. But while we're waiting on this, so this is good for the case I'm trying to make. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the content creation side of things and some really smart ways to create content on the internet. I mean, the internet has obviously, I feel like a kind of a dork saying this, it's changed the game. We're in a completely different world than we were last year or the year before, any year previous to that. Okay, so we're just going to remember this for the time being. Maybe I'll bring it up again at the end. But the lesson here is that the vast majority of people love their mothers compared to don't love their mothers. Our case study is for Famous Footwear. And they were looking for some additional content. They already had a really great tagline with this "Victory is yours" tagline. And they had some great TV spots already that their agency and internally they had produced. But they were missing something. The spots that they had really focused on the individual shoe brands and didn't tell the story of Famous Footwear. That didn't create any sort of emotional connection to the brand apart from the individual products they sold. So what they really wanted was content that created an authentic emotional connection with their consumers, apart from any individual brand. And another thing just to keep in mind as we go through this, their initial release and promotion for this video is going to be timed with Mother's Day. So you might see a little bit of a theme emerging so far. So I did a terrible job at laying out the reveal here. All of the stats at the end are plainly available for you right there. I'd ask you to look at the left-hand side of the screen first. So what Famous Footwear did with Pop10 is they crowdsourced video. They chose a group of 18 creators who were pre-vetted based on their skill set and their Pop10 Karma rating. They had a history of performance. But other than that, they were very diverse. They came from all over the country, and they had really varied skill sets, and they had very varied life experiences, different socioeconomic statuses, different cultural backgrounds, access to different castes. One of the things that is often overlooked when you go out and crowdsource, whether it's through a company or just through your own social networks, is when you ask people to give you content, especially when it's video content, you don't only get access to that one person, but each of those people is a mini casting agency, really. And you get access to their social network of personalities, friends, and experiences, which is very powerful. So they got 18 pieces of video back in, and they only ran with one of them. But before moving on and talking about how effective that was for them, what they got with those additional 17 pieces of video were just an incredible amount of insight in video form. When you ask for tweeted information back to your brand or Facebook comments or even comments on YouTube video, all of that stuff is very, very valuable. But there's an additional layer of insight that comes when somebody visually executes on a creative brief that you give them. So the CMO of Famous Footwear, that was actually one of the things that she called out, was that she was surprised at how well some of these filmmakers internalized the brief and some of the insights that they got back based on what they thought their messaging was and what actually resonated with the filmmakers. You start to see some really broad trends of this is what we're trying to say to our consumers, and this is how they appear to be actually receiving it and internalizing it. So a little bit on the performance. 0 negative sentiment in the week leading up to Mother's Day across all of the social sites that they measure on. Mom-focused Pinterest board that featured both quotes associated with the video that they chose, as well as the video in question, increased their Pinterest followers by 2,100. And they saw a video with almost 250,000 views on YouTube. This video was actually created for TV. They didn't do a lot of promotion in the digital space. And they saw almost 250,000 views. It's the most viewed in their channel history by far. And this one was an interesting kind of tidbit they threw out. They sent out a nurture email that was not constructed in any way to drive purchase activity. And from that email, they saw almost $20,000 in sales, which is kind of cool. So this is the area, or this is the video. And let's watch this really quick. It's only about a minute long. Oops. Hopefully I can turn this on. Oops.
Mom.
Mom.
Honey,
Mom. I know every day's a challenge.
with changing obstacles.
And I know you strive tirelessly
To win. You taught me to listen to how I feel and always have a backup plan.
You taught me not to rush and take it one step at a time.
You gave me the spirit of adventure with all the comforts of home.
You got my size right. Even when I couldn't figure out yours.
You made me feel like a princess for the very first time.
Mom,
Mom. Mom.
Mom.
they'll tell you that victory is out there.
Don't believe them. You've already won.
I mean, that sort of thing, it actually still, I feel like such a goof, but it still makes me tear up. And I mean, I know there's some sort of personal bias towards it. But I mean, those vignettes that come from, by and large, from just everyday people, are just so powerful. So a couple things that I do want to talk about in terms of key insights. This was already mentioned and is just a brilliant insight. Have a plan when you're dealing with video. And this kind of breaks down in two ways. One of it is, this is from Amy Rose, the director of integrated media at Famous Footwear. She really ran the engagement with us. Make sure you know how you want to use your video and what resources you'll put behind it. Otherwise, you could end up with a great video and not know what to do with it. That's the one insight. The other one is have a strategy for creating video. So on the front end, this know what you're going to do with it, how you're going to use it. That was really well addressed already. But understanding your goals ahead of time, incredibly important. But the other side of that is have a strategy for creating the video. Once you know your goals, you have to decide on how you're going to communicate those goals. A really interesting thing here, Famous Footwear had that tagline and had their other TV spots that were created by their agency and their internal teams. And what they were doing with this crowdsourcing engagement was creating additional content around that. And that's one of the areas where we see that when you go to your communities, your own communities and your consumers, starting with a great high-level idea and then asking for your consumers to ideate on that, that's where you see some real value. So once you know that you have goals, you have to figure out how you're going to take that goal, what you want your consumers to get from your video, and get them to be interested in it for some reason. You could pay to place a traditional ad in front of as many people as you like, but there are better ways to go about this. And you can give them back some sort of value in a number of ways. One of which is through social capital that was spoken about at the previous session. You know, is this going to make me look better to share it? You know, there's obvious cultural pressures associated with Mother's Day. I'm sure maybe one or two people who answered yes to that poll maybe didn't do something nice, but if you say, no, I didn't do something nice for my mom, there's some negative stigma associated with that. So social capital is one. Cultural touchstones, this is another one that we're all really familiar with. The idea of having a video that's focused on Mother's Day. That's an event that we all interact with. Jonah Berger, he wrote this book called Contagious. It's a great book and you should read it. But he raises this wonderful example of this social trigger and cultural touchstone. The Rebecca Black video, Friday. It's a great song. I was listening to it to get pumped before coming up here. But you'll see something really interesting in the YouTube search traffic around that video. Can you guess what day people search for that video most? Friday, exactly. So attaching your video and the meta information around your video, the comments people are going to be making, the title, the tags, with cultural touchstones that people are interacting with anyway, gives you a natural opportunity for people to latch on and remember your content. Emotional content, this is another thing that the previous panel discussed really well. Be aware of the emotions you want to trigger, and that even negative emotions can get people talking. You just be smart about that. And the last one, relatable, authentic stories. We're all storytelling animals. It's how we make sense of everything around us. And we need to start doing a better job of that. Chris from the previous panel, when he was talking about getting more into an editorial frame of mind, that really resonated with me. And some of that is providing tips and tricks and, you know, this is how this is going to benefit you. But some of that is also just telling stories so we can better understand how your brands fit into our lives. An example of this is a dumb one. I don't know what I was doing. I was painting my sister's house recently, and it was dark, and they don't have any lights on their second floor. But I had my phone, and I had an adjustable Craftsman wrench and some blue tape. And so you can guess what I did. I put my phone in the adjustable wrench, and I blue taped that wrench to my head like some sort of goof, and I was painting in the dark with this little spotlight. And I can't tell you how many people I've told about this. This is this native opportunity. I remember what the brand was. It's this Craftsman wrench and the blue painter's tape, and this is how it helped me in my daily life. So this is my last point, and I'll leave you with this. You should really be asking your customers to help tell your story. You're not going to have to give them complete control of this, but like Susie mentioned this morning, they're going to be telling these stories anyway, and the best that you can hope to do is shape that conversation. One of the best ways you can hope to shape the conversation is by asking your consumers to participate. And there's no better qualification to help tell your story than have I spent money on your product? it obviously meant enough to me to spend money on it. So, you know, we're pretty stoked about this, and thank you guys for the time.
Thanks, Chris. That's really good. Okay, so we've had 3 fabulous case studies, and I'm sure it's triggered a number of questions. Is there anybody wants to start off straight away? Yep.
Check. Under the idea of successful video marketing, I was just wondering what you guys thought about buying views. Like you talked about 225K views for yours. I'm sure if you put some budget at it, it could have been 500 or 750, and just what you guys think about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is this on? Yeah. It's funny, as I was sitting here, I said, oh, I forgot to mention PPC campaigns. So I'm really glad you asked that. We've worked with customers in both view buying, you know, what I'd call paid and organic, right, or earned or paid, depending on how you want to think about it. And it really depends on your profit equation, because if you believe you can buy views for 20 cents and the return you're going to get on those views is more than 20 cents, then it's arbitrage, right? You can buy audience. Now, you can't force someone unless you're holding them by the head and saying, you must watch this. You can't force things like engagement and how long they'll spend. But I think view buying is absolutely acceptable and fine, and we worked with, not with this company, but Johnny Walker on a big global campaign a few years ago, and it was called Walk with Giants, and they had very specific goals around numbers of views, numbers of people they needed to hit in the Benelux region, so Belgium, Luxembourg, and Netherlands. And it was a challenge. We sort of looked at, well, what are the options? There are blogs, you know, that we could, that sort of in those areas, those geographic areas that we could go make sure embed the player, for example. But really, the best way for us to drive that audience, we learned, was Google SEM. It was pay-per-click advertising. And it was better, it was going to be better than, you know, CPM-based display-oriented advertising, although there's some interesting things you can do now that really weren't available back then. And we ended up hitting the goal, you know, working with them to hit the goal, I should say. It was a collective effort. And they got the return. You know, he essentially said, here's what we're going to spend, and here are the keywords that we're going to go purchase. And anytime someone searched for those keywords in a particular geo, they were presented with an opportunity to see our video, and we ended up hitting the goal that way, and they were thrilled. I think there are lots of questions about autoplay and you know, that you get into. There's lots of sophistication now with video ad networks and even using Google in the way I just described. But yeah, I think it's perfectly acceptable as long as you understand what your investment is on the paid side, and you stick with it, and it meets your profit equation, your economics, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I want to add to that. I think that's a great answer, but it all starts with great content, right? So think about pay per click on video like the book industry. I don't know how many of you guys know how best-selling books are made. They're made by huge book buys by the publishers when the book comes out during a certain time. So the idea is to drive awareness and visibility for the title so that everybody starts to think, wow, it's on the bestseller list, it must be good, I'm going to go buy it. So pay-per-click around video is great for doing that. You're driving awareness and visibility up for your video, but if the content sucks, right, people are not going to get engaged. And so the problem, for example, like with YouTube, is not understanding where people are falling off on your videos. And so you have no real sense of, did they watch 10 seconds of it or 60 seconds of it? And so understanding that I'm going to pay for clicks, I'm going to drive traffic, I'm going to create visibility, make sure the content is awesome, and then focus on engagement. You've got to be engaging with your videos, ask questions, develop content around it, create a conversation so that you know, because people will tell you, they're like, oh yeah, I went and clicked on the video, it was horrible. Oops, okay, let's put a new video in quick, right? Just remember that pay-per-click is great for driving visibility, but it doesn't really answer the question of, are people actually watching my video? And that's a whole different problem.
Yeah, and just briefly, from our perspective, it's just to echo a lot of this same stuff, but you can definitely, we're really kind of cynical about the old idea of viral videos, of view counts being the be-all, end-all. And we're much more interested, and our clients have been much more interested in real engagement. So, you know, there's definitely a place for buying views, especially if you're trying to maybe foster a new YouTube channel and build up some sort of interest around that channel. But at the end of the day, if you have to buy all your views, you kind of have a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to take one more question, and I'm going to let the panel give a one-sentence answer. So anybody got another question? No, this is your last chance. No. You must have covered every detail.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one.
Yeah, in the back as well.
What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
We're facing as vendors? Is that the question? So if you didn't hear, what's the challenge that we face? I think the challenge that we face is probably not dissimilar from other businesses, vendors in this area. We have a lot of diversity in the video world. So there's no such thing as just video marketing. There's entertainment-oriented video, there's media, there's churches, there's packaged goods, and because those 5 Ps are so important, right? Understanding and creating tools to reduce the friction for people who need to implement video strategies, which is what most of us are in the business of doing, means that you need to be able to serve lots of different variables and lots of different diverse strategies. And I think we all probably feel like we do a good job of that, but that's probably the biggest challenge, not just for us, but for the learning curve that happens in the market today.
Thanks, Jen. Chris?
I think our biggest challenge is probably disassociating the idea of crowdsourcing with low quality and inequality with creative, or inequity, I guess, with creative professionals. But it's something that we're really striving to do. I mean, we've created a marketplace that is striving to be as fair as possible to the creative professionals who are participating, and we've been producing content that performs. No matter what you think of the quality, we've had Super Bowl spots, we've had these more authentic feeling spots, but that's probably our biggest challenge.
Jason?
All right, Twitter answer. Getting businesses to understand that video success is not just short-term return. All right, all businesses, thank you, woohoo! Too many businesses think if I don't get the numbers right away, scrap video. It's both short-term and long-term. So getting businesses to understand that.
Thank you, all three of you. Brilliant. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Jason, Chris, and Jen.